I think one of the dangers, if you are a comedian and start to comment on social issues, your sense of humor suffers somewhere.
Late night TV is on life support. The only question is, which plug gets pulled next? Stephen Colbert's show is set to end in 2026, while Jimmy Kimmel was briefly suspended, but thanks to celebrity pressure and the shooting of an ABC building, ABC caved and put him back on the air. So why is late night TV collapsing? To understand, we need to go back to the golden age. Back in the 80s and 90s, late night TV was America's bedtime routine. You had hosts like Johnny Carson who unified the country with laughter. Around 15 million Americans tuned in every night. His Tonight Show wasn't just entertaining, it was a cash machine. At its peak, the show brought in about 17% of NBC's entire profit, making it the single biggest moneymaker in television at that time. And Carson himself understood why it worked, because he kept politics out of it.
Why do they think that just because you have a Tonight Show that you must deal in serious issues? That's a danger. It's a real danger. Once you start that, you start to get that self-important feeling that what you say has great import. And you know, strangely enough, you could use that show as a forum. You could sway people, and I don't think you should as an entertainer.
David Letterman took the late night baton and made it weird. He wasn't trying to be like Carson, instead he built a new kind of show with his top 10 list and stupid human tricks. Critics called the top 10 bit a construct of comic perfection, noting its perfect timing and repeated build-up and release. Letterman's comedy was quirky and offbeat, but still fun and apolitical. In my opinion, he influenced every host who came after him. When Jay Leno took over The Tonight Show in 1992, he kept the Big Tent open. Leno's nightly average of 5.7 million viewers in 2006 gave NBC a 31% share of the audience, far ahead of Letterman's 4.2 million. Together, Carson, Letterman, and Leno defined a golden age of late night, one built on jokes everyone could enjoy, not partisan sermons. Then in 2014, everything changed. Networks rolled out a new generation of hosts: Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, and already on ABC since 2003, Jimmy Kimmel. And when Donald Trump announced his candidacy, late night went all in on politics. It was a perfect storm. But let's back up for a second. I think there was one moment that showed the establishment just how powerful comedy could be as a weapon against Republicans. And that was the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner. That night, Seth Meyers and Obama took the stage and roasted Donald Trump in front of the entire country.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
Say what you will about Mr. Trump. He certainly would bring some change to the White House. Let's see what we've got up there.
Donald Trump often appears on Fox, which is ironic because a fox often appears on Donald Trump's head.
This showed the establishment that comedy could do more than just entertain. It could be weaponized. And that's when the shift in late night really began. Colbert completely rebranded himself. On Comedy Central, he played a quirky satirist who I used to actually really enjoy, but when he took over The Late Show in 2015, his show turned into a nightly anti-Trump monologue. Colbert had many unhinged outbursts throughout the years, but the following takes the cake.
Mr. Trump, your presidency, I love your presidency. I call it disgrace the nation. You're the bloatus. You're the glutton with the button. You're a regular Gorge Washington. You're the presidents, but you're turning into a real prick-tater. Sir, you attract more skinheads than free Rogaine. You have more people marching against you than cancer. You talk like a sign language gorilla who got hit in the head. In fact, the only thing your mouth is good for is being Vladimir Putin's holster.
Rather than delivering jokes for everybody, Colbert positioned his show as a moral lecture for the left. Seth Meyers followed a similar path. But when NBC gave Meyers late night in 2014, he didn't jump straight into politics. In fact, his team later said,
"We actually thought, oh my God, imagine having to do long-form politics every day."
Well, we thought we couldn't do them. Nobody ever thought we could do them to this length.
Right, but we thought, oh, they'll be fun to do once.
But Meyers soon launched A Closer Look, a segment that became one of the show's most popular and provided, according to NBC, hilarious commentary on the day's biggest political stories. In reality, it turned him into a knockoff MSDNC host, delivering lectures instead of laughs. Jimmy Fallon, on the other hand, tried to stay lighthearted, building his Tonight Show around games and celebrity impressions. But in 2016, when Trump came on his show and Fallon playfully tousled his hair, the media erupted.
Can I mess your hair up? The answer is yes, but the people in New Hampshire, where I'm going to be in about an hour from now, I hope they're going to understand.
You say yes?
Go ahead, with my hairspray.
They accused Fallon of normalizing Trump, and Fallon even apologized in the end, which was really spineless. From that moment, a chunk of his audience walked away, and his ratings never fully recovered. Jimmy Kimmel took the hardest turn. He started in 2003 as a goofy comedian, but after 2016, he began delivering weepy monologues about healthcare and gun control and hammering Trump almost nightly. Kimmel later admitted that his anti-Trump jokes cost him half his fan base, and even told his bosses he'd rather quit than stop bashing Trump. While Colbert, Meyers, and the Jimmys were busy pushing half the country away, Fox News saw an opening. Greg Gutfeld first launched his weekend show back in 2015, and by 2021, it was expanded into a nightly program. Gutfeld, built on anti-woke, anti-PC humor. It was a response to the liberal saturation of the market. Then the pandemic hit, causing studios to shut down. The in-person laughter suddenly disappeared. Colbert, Kimmel, and Meyers broadcasted from their homes, talking straight into webcams. No audiences, no bands, no energy. With nothing to laugh about, the host almost became radicalized in their beliefs, and eventually would become indistinguishable from MSDNC hosts.
For all the predictable behavior of the last few days and the last 4 years, right now, something unpredictable needs to happen.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Viewers stuck at home started to look elsewhere, to podcasts, YouTube creators, and TikTokers who were actually funny. When studios reopened, much of the old audience never came back, but the radical left stuck around. In 2018, late night was still a cash cow, pulling in about $439 million in ad revenue. But by 2024, that number had been cut in half, down to just $221 million. Viewership collapsed across the board. What used to be 4 or 5 million viewer shows shrank to barely 1 or 2 million a night. The collapse was even worse with younger audiences, the ones advertisers pay the most attention to. Back in 2013, Jimmy Kimmel was drawing around 680,000 viewers aged 18 to 49 each night. By 2024, that number had fallen to just 160,000. Stephen Colbert sank to about 180,000, and Jimmy Fallon was down to around 130,000. When your must-watch shows can't even beat reruns and are losing millions of younger viewers, advertisers start walking away. So let's circle back to Colbert and Kimmel. By July 2025, CBS announced that The Late Show with Stephen Colbert would end in May 2026. The network explained that the decision was purely a financial one because late-night ad revenue has collapsed. Reuters reports that Colbert's show generated about $70 million in ads last year, but cost much more to produce. A former network executive noted that the program was losing roughly $40 million annually. Politics may have accelerated Colbert's demise, but the economics don't lie. At the time, Paramount was in the process of completing a $8.4 billion merger with Skydance and needed regulatory approval from the Trump administration. The show's cancellation came days after Colbert criticized CBS for settling a lawsuit with Donald Trump and suggested the payment was a
big fat bribe.
Yet in September, the former Paramount chair admitted that late night was no longer financially viable.
The cancellation of Steve Colbert's show, that was never explicitly stated as being part of getting regulatory approval, but it's something that I think a lot of people assumed. Do you think that they made the right choices to ensure that they got the regulatory approval?
I'm not going to tie any of that to regulatory approval. I can tell you that we had been looking at late night. It was financially not viable.
This combination of collapsed ad revenue, shrinking audiences, and corporate belt tightening explains why a program that has led its time slot for nearly a decade is being retired. The second story is even messier. On September 17th, 2025, ABC suspended Jimmy Kimmel Live after Kimmel's monologue about Charlie Kirk. Here's exactly what he said.
He had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. You can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction.
These remarks drew ire from the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, and affiliates Nexstar and Sinclair. Both broadcast groups pulled the show from their stations, and Carr warned that ABC's licenses could be reviewed. Under mounting pressure, Disney and ABC suspended the program to avoid inflaming a tense situation, and Kimmel's suspension lasted only 5 days. During those days, though, protests erupted outside ABC headquarters, and a gunman actually fired several bullets into the lobby of ABC 10 in Sacramento. Prosecutors said there was circumstantial evidence that the shooter was motivated by Kimmel's suspension. Notes found in the suspect's car referenced political grievances and targeted officials aligned with the Trump administration. On September 22nd, out of fear of more retaliation, Disney announced that Kimmel's show would return the following day. Notably, Sinclair and Nexstar refused to air the return episode, depriving about a quarter of ABC stations of the program. Kimmel opened his comeback monologue with a reference to Jack Parr's famous line,
"As I was saying before I was interrupted,"
and through tears defended his words and criticized Trump for celebrating the suspensions of Colbert and other hosts.
As I was saying before I was interrupted, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear. He was able to squeeze Colbert out of CBS, then he turned his sights on me, and now he's openly rooting for NBC to fire Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and the hundreds of Americans who work for their shows who don't make millions of dollars. And I hope that if that happens, or if there's even any hint of that happening, you will be 10 times as loud as you were this week.
That episode drew 6.26 million viewers, an extraordinary number for 2025, and the monologue racked up 26 million views across YouTube and social media. Honestly though, I think this success is short-lived. Think of it like this: Trump creates so many news headlines that by next week the left will move on and Kimmel will go back to where he was before. But if I could give some advice to Trump, stop acknowledging Kimmel. It's putting wind into the sails of his failing show. In conclusion, late night TV, once built on broad humor and mass appeal, is now shrinking under the weight of partisanship and collapsing business fundamentals. Colbert's departure and Kimmel's suspension highlight how financial pressures, political threats, and safety concerns now drive programming decisions. If the shows continue at this rate, I predict the end of late night by 2028. But let me know what you think, and thank you for watching.